Are you tired of getting those same old, kind of boring, surface-level answers from your AI? I mean, what if you could turn it from a forgetful intern into a genuine, world-class expert who's ready to tackle your toughest problems? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. The art, and yes, the science of crafting expert-level prompts. Let's get right into it. You totally know this feeling, right? You start a new chat and poof, it's a completely blank slate. You have to re-explain everything. Your goals, the context, your constraints, all of it. It's like having this brilliant assistant who forgets who you are the second you walk out of the room. It's not just frustrating, it's a huge waste of time and energy that you could be using to actually solve the problem. And this is the core of what we're going to fix. The difference in the output quality isn't just a little better, it is a total transformation. I mean, look at this. On the left, a lazy prompt gives you a lazy generic list you could find in 2 seconds on Google. But on the right, a super specific, layered prompt produces a sharp, actionable analysis that you can actually use. This is the leap from a generic tool to a true expert partner.
So how do we actually make that leap? Well, it all starts by changing our whole approach. We need to stop just telling the AI what to give us and start teaching it how to think. Let's look at the frameworks that build a better reasoning process, right from the ground up.
Okay, our first tool is something called chain of thought. The big idea here is pretty simple. For complex problems, just demanding the final answer is like asking for the solution to a maze without seeing the path. Instead, you prompt the model to think out loud, to show its work step by step. It kind of mimics how we humans solve tricky problems, forcing a logical flow and dramatically cutting down on mistakes.
So let's break down how this actually works. You're basically forcing the AI to slow down and show its thought process. It takes that big, overwhelming problem, carves it into smaller, manageable pieces, thinks through each one, and then puts the whole puzzle together for you. And the result? You don't just get the answer, you get to see the logic that built it. No more black box responses. Building on that is a technique called self-ask. Now, think of this like telling the AI to interview itself before it gives you an answer. For a big, messy question like, is nuclear power a good solution for climate change? It first has to ask and answer a bunch of smaller questions. What are the costs? What's the deal with the waste? How efficient is it? This makes sure all the critical parts of a problem are actually considered. So what we have here is a really powerful toolkit for structuring the AI's thinking. Chain of thought, that's your go-to for linear, step-by-step problems like math. Self-ask is perfect for breaking down those complex, fact-heavy questions. And for really creative or strategic stuff, there's even tree of thoughts, which can make the AI explore and evaluate multiple different futures at once. These are the foundations for getting much, much better answers. Okay, so once we've guided the AI on how to think, the next step is to tell it who to be. This is where we go way beyond a simple command like act as a marketer, and we start building a complete expert identity with its own goals, its own knowledge, and its own unique style. Let's build out that venture capitalist persona we saw earlier, piece by piece. The foundation is always the role and the goal. See, it's not just a VC. It's a VC whose specific goal is to rigorously vet a B2B SaaS pitch for a potential $1 million investment. That goal is going to frame every single word of its response.
Next, we give it a history. We give it a knowledge base. We specify its 20 years of experience, its deep expertise in SaaS, and crucially, its bias, its skepticism towards consumer hardware. This level of specificity is what gives the persona its sharp, believable expert edge.
Now we take control of the voice. The tone and style are absolutely critical for making the output feel authentic. So for our VC, we'll specify a tone that is skeptical but fair, concise, and professional. No friendly fluff, no wasted words, just direct expert analysis. Now, this next part, this is a total game changer. Setting constraints. It's not just about what you want, it's about what you don't want. For our VC, we'd say, you will not give vague praise, you will not just summarize the pitch, and your response must be under 300 words. This is your scalpel for surgically removing all that generic filler. And finally, the anchor, an example. By giving it just a short little snippet of what a good response looks like, you give the AI a perfect target to aim for format, for style, for quality. You've now built a complete identity, and you've taken all the guesswork out of the AI's hands.
And this quote just gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Act as isn't a bad command, it's just a weak and incomplete one. It's the starting block, not the entire racetrack. The real power comes from layering all these other elements right on top of it.
So, a few quick pro tips to really refine your personas. Research suggests that professional, non-intimate roles, think supervisor or historian, they tend to give you more objective results. Also,
For really complex tasks, try a two-step prompt. First, define the persona and get the AI to confirm it understands. Then, ask your real question in the next prompt. This really solidifies the role before the work begins.
All right, now that we've built a structured thinker and a solid persona, let's get to the really fun part. These are the counterintuitive, almost psychological hacks that can unlock surprisingly creative and critical outputs just by changing the social context of your ask. First up, add some imaginary stakes. There's just something about framing a question as a bet that makes the AI double-check its work. It's not because it wants your $100, of course, but because the language of betting and its training data is associated with higher scrutiny and defending a position. It becomes more thorough.
Or try giving it an imaginary audience. The simple prompt to explain clearly is pretty vague, but telling it to explain blockchain to a packed auditorium, that forces it to adopt a completely different communication style, using better analogies, anticipating where people might get confused, and structuring the whole thing for maximum clarity.
This one is particularly clever. Try asking for the worst possible advice first. By prompting the AI to generate a list of just terrible marketing ideas, you're forcing it to map out the entire landscape of what not to do. Then, when you follow up by asking for the good ideas, it's already primed to avoid all those pitfalls. In my personal favorite, frame your request as a debate. This simple switch moves the AI from being a passive explainer to an active evaluator. Instead of just telling you about a strategy, it's forced to either build a powerful argument for it or concede its flaws. And that leads to a much more nuanced and critical analysis.
So, why does any of this stuff actually work? Well, it all comes down to pattern matching. We aren't really tricking a conscious mind here. We're just using these social frames, bets, debates, speeches, to tap into the massive library of human text the AI was trained on. By bringing up these scenarios, we steer its output toward the more sophisticated and structured patterns associated with them. It's pretty cool.
All right, let's pull all these ideas together. We've gone from basic commands to structuring thought, building identities, and even using psychological framing. So here it is, your new playbook to take you from those frustrating conversations to fluent, expert-level collaboration.
Just remember these 4 keys. First, always structure the AI's thought process. Second, build a complete 5-part persona for any serious task. Third, harness the incredible power of negative constraints to get rid of the fluff. And finally, don't be afraid to experiment with those social hacks to unlock different modes of creativity and analysis. You now have a really powerful set of tools to fundamentally change your relationship with AI, to move way beyond simple Q&A and into true collaboration. You have the keys to unlock a whole new level of depth, creativity, and expertise. The only question left is, what complex problem are you going to solve first?